Everyone's silent. Carol comes in. Russell, 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 Russell. They are here. She's not talking about her filing system. She's talking about dating advice. If you are hoping for a kiss under the mistletoe this Christmas, you can give them a shout. So what can you two help with today? Because you've got quite differing advice.
I've been sorting through her correspondence. She's trying to work out who to spend Christmas
love
with.
letters.
They are love letters. She's got such an array. But truly, romance at Christmas, seriously, can be quite a challenge.
Yes,
if you've just started a new relationship, is this the Christmas you're going to invite him or her to meet your parents for the first time?
That's a biggie.
That's a big one.
And a lot of people break up at Christmas time. Should you break up before? Do you go into it knowing possibly that that's what's
Or even break up during.
During.
There's a lull before you, as it were, do the parson's
Divorce
nose.
lawyers are very active in January.
You can't break up on Christmas Day.
Oh, well.
You
That's
can't
not
break
allowed.
up whilst you're doing the parson's nose.
Or even pass the parcel. With her, she's got so many boyfriends that she plays that thing of going past the parcel, and whoever ends up holding the parcel has to leave the house. That's how she gets shot of them.
Well, I literally cannot wait to hear all about this.
But we want people to phone in with their stories
Yes,
and
we do.
their experience.
How much to spend on a present?
Yeah.
You know, should you go to his parents? Should he go to your parents?
Yeah.
All of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, if it sounds like something you could use a bit of help with, you can give us a call for free on 08000 30 40 44. Download our free This Morning app to get involved. Please get in touch by 11:15 today, and you must be 18 or over.
Now, while you get dialing, Carol and Giles are going to be helping us take a look at the headlines.
Oh, I
today.
wonder what we're talking about.
Yes.
Well, it's sort of moved on
Hence
because
my filing.
Hence your filing. There is a lot to talk about. Obviously, the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary.
Yes.
Yeah, this time yesterday we just come on air. We were sort of talking about our first feelings about it. Now a lot of people have been watching it. The papers are reporting how a row has been breaking out, whether or not the royal family and the palaces were given a right to reply to the Duke of Duchess of Sussex right at the very beginning of the documentary.
Yes.
That's something that's saying they were given a right, but didn't want to comment. So Netflix sources insisted that the communications offices for the King and the Prince of Wales were contacted in advance of the documentary being released and were given the chance to react. Kensington Palace reportedly confirmed it did receive an email from a third-party production company from an unknown organisation's address and attempted to verify its authenticity with Archewell Productions and Netflix, but it never received a response.
Yes. Well, the whole series began with just white writing on a black screen which said members of the royal family have declined to comment on the content of this series. Now, patently they hadn't. So, though editorially it was an extremely well-made series, may I say, but there were a lot of things there. So that is Netflix, the streaming giant, who has made The Crown, and a lot of people say this last series is more fiction than fact. But they won't put a disclaimer on it. So now they're setting up an audience, a viewer, to think, oh, they've declined to comment. It implies some guilt somewhere. That entire statement implies guilt. So that's where you're set up from at the very
Even if
beginning.
they got through, Giles, I'm not entirely sure.
There would have been no comment.
No, I wouldn't
There
have
would be no
thought
comment
that
at all. I mean, there's no expectation for a comment.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to rise above it. That's going to be the motto. I know. I mean, the Queen enjoyed watching television. She was a keen television viewer. Indeed, during lockdown, she was getting to grips with Line of Duty, couldn't quite follow it. And indeed, the master of the household became what he called the explainer. He said they had a lot of laughs trying to follow what was going on. So she enjoyed television. But the King does not watch much television at the best of times. The Queen Consort told me that she tried to get him to watch the series I do on Canals on Channel 4. And he did apparently courteously watch a few minutes and then went back to his desk. He's a workaholic.
So you don't think he would have been...
I don't think he'd have, watched it, and they certainly would not have commented. The only time we did get a comment, you remember, from William, after the Oprah interview, the day after, he said, "We are not a racist family."
Yeah.
I think if there was a suggestion that...
There wasn't an awful lot to comment on,
There
really,
wasn't.
was it?
The
Because it
trailer was
seems
a bit more exciting than the
trailer was
show.
more...
Well, there's a couple of little bits and pieces because we know that... what did you think of it in general? You know the family. I mean, we watched yesterday. We both went home and watched the whole thing again, properly, sat down, analysed, and I thought, God, the papers will be interesting tomorrow. You go for the papers and they'll come back at you.
Yes.
And that is exactly what they've done.
Absolutely. That's
today.
what's happened today, because actually the programme was about press intrusion.
Yeah.
And so today the response in the newspapers has been saying, actually, when they were engaged and got married, we were full of support and full of love, and they've tried to illustrate that. But the royal family has had reservations about the press for generations. My generation, knowing the Duke of Edinburgh, the things he said about the press, as it were, privately, you always said it privately, you would not want to say in public. But
they've all struggled in their moments with the press. I mean, even in the documentary themselves, King Charles, when he was a younger man, was talking about press intrusion. He was actually saying exactly the same thing as Harry is. Let's have a listen.
Cameras poking at you from every quarter and recording every twitch. If you don't try to work out in your own mind some kind of method for existing and surviving this kind of thing, you would go mad, I think.
In 1949, the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen, then Princess Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh, went to Paris for the first time. And they found themselves in a restaurant having, apparently they thought, a private meal, entertained by the French government. And the Duke of Edinburgh saw a table over there, and underneath the table, under the tablecloth, he saw a lens. And he thought, this is the beginning of my life now. They were in their 20s, only just had got married. And he thought, but this is my life.
So
there's nothing new in any of it.
But it's bigger now.
Looking back at where they are now, what it does, what we saw, what it did to their family. We saw Meghan's mother talking.
Yeah.
Do you think that they had a legitimate right to have a pop, many papers, and as I said, you know, you go for them, they'll come for you. That it's Hollywood hysteria, it's fabricated, it's untrue.
No, it's a clash of two cultures. It's two cultures. It's two different ways of looking at the world. And it's perfectly fair for them to have their say. I don't think it will affect the future of the institution of the monarchy one jot. It's them telling their story in their own way. But I don't think it affects the way the King, or indeed Prince William, now the Prince of Wales, will perform. The one thing I thought was a bit unfair that I caught was Meghan suggesting that Prince William and Catherine were one sort of person in private and a different sort of person in public. If you have met them, and I think you have, and we have met them, they are totally consistent as people. They're totally normal, nice, quite British. It must be said, in their manner, but they're totally the same with the crew, with ordinary people, as when the doors
you
close.
need to see how they are with their own children. You know, you've seen those moments of Catherine when she was with Louis and how she handled that situation, like very hands-on, very warm, very touchy. You know, that kind of feeling. And I think that just proves that. I have to say, this was the only bit in the whole documentary where I went, oh, don't do that. Because I just thought that by suggesting somebody is a bit cold is a really horrible thing to brush away and brush off. Because she's clearly...
Yes.
Well, I mean, we don't know her, but from what we see of her, I always judge the way somebody is with their own children. I think you get a pretty good idea. She seems to be a very hands-on.
But it was this implication. This is made for an American audience, by the way. It's made about us, but it's not made for us. So the language used and so on is very much for an American audience. And what I found interesting was that it was sort of, you know, there's a town crier in every episode. It's like, it's comical.
It's Richard Curtis's view of Britain, as it were.
Yes, it is. It's a very...
Amazed they're not Morris dancers in the background.
Yes, restricted view.
We've still got three episodes to go.
Of where we live today. It was very much sort of Notting Hill and everyone speaks like Hugh Grant, and acts like Hugh Grant. And so it was kind of... It was extended, this, what you were just talking about, this formality to say, she said, a lot of British people are like this. Well, love, if you go and mix with that kind of person, that's fine. But you go up to Manchester or you go here, there, and everyone's hugging like crazy. You know, it's not... It was a
But I don't think it's suggesting that if you can mix with that sort of person, what is that? Anyone within the royal family isn't a hugger. I don't believe that.
Well, I don't
like,
believe
I actually
that
don't
either.
believe... We saw in the footage, you know, like Prince Charles with his thing over his head talking to the kids, like, just being normal.
Well,
like, just because you've got... You're posh and you've got... It doesn't mean you can't hug someone.
But
like, it's
Mike
crazy.
Tyndall in the jungle.
Yeah.
Well, different people have different approaches to this. Princess Anne said a few years ago that you could imagine if she was a child, she wouldn't necessarily want to be hugged by a total stranger. And she's wonderful with children. She's run Save the Children, been their president for many years. People have different approaches. And I don't necessarily hug people I've not met before. So I think it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
One of the big themes, especially when you got to the beginning of episode 3, is race in the UK. It's a very complex issue. Obviously, wherever it is, it has to be called out. One thing I wanted to bounce off you, Charles, was hearing the Commonwealth of 2022 compared to Empire 2.0. Do you think that was fair, bearing in mind that countries in the Commonwealth now can leave, they opt to be part of the Commonwealth?
The Commonwealth, when the Queen came to the throne, was 8 countries. It's now 56. countries are coming on board, several of them with no historical links with Britain whatsoever. And interestingly, which I did not know, but the Queen told me, there are several Commonwealth countries that have their own king or queen. She wasn't the only monarch in the Commonwealth. She was simply the head of the Commonwealth they wanted her to be. So that, I felt, was totally unfair. And I think the sadness, from the late Queen's point of view, was that when Meghan came into the family, she was very warmly welcomed, certainly by the Queen, who said to her, if you want to carry on being an actress, that is your profession, please do. But Meghan said, no, I really want to be part of this thing, and the Commonwealth is what interests me in particular. And that excited the Queen. And I think where it began to go wrong was when the Queen then said, well, it's quite difficult coming into this institution from the outside. Maybe Sophie, Wessex, who's the latest addition, as it were, could be a kind of mentor, could show you the ropes. And Meghan rejected that and said, no, I don't think so. I've got Harry.
Which leads us to our next point, which is that, and much has been made of this, that we both had the same opinion, that you watched this and I thought it was funny, the curtsy moment.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss this in just a moment, because it seemed terribly unfair that Meghan was suddenly, if she was in the car on the way to lunch, and, oh, by the way, Granny's there, you do know how to curtsy. That it's interesting that you should point out that the Queen said Sophie Wessex could help her and point her in the right direction. She appeared to have absolutely no idea what she was supposed to do. I thought Harry might have helped her with that a little bit as well, so she ended up not quite knowing how to curtsy.
I remember we're in the car and driving up, and he said, you know how to curtsy, right? And I just thought it was a joke. Now I'm starting to realize this is a big deal. I mean, Americans will understand this. We have medieval times, dinner and tournament. It was like that. Like, I curtsied as though I was like...
Harry didn't find that very funny at all.
Wasn't
Do you
very
not think he
funny.
did? Do you
He
not-
wasn't
you didn't
smiling.
think it was
He
funny?
wasn't smiling. I think it was awkward. We know what a curtsy is like. Just do a quick bob. Show them how curtsy is done.
bob.
It's not everybody does know
I
the curtsy.
thought it was okay.
There we are. It's a little... Exactly.
Oh,
that's a
that's
simple
lovely.
curtsy.
Was that a nice
It's
one?
was
not
lovely.
difficult to
That
learn,
was to you,
but
Hall.
it is often awkward for people. I remember the first time my wife met the Queen, she forgot to curtsy, and then she remembered halfway through the conversation, then suddenly bobbed down and found her head sort of knocking at the...
Joan Collins went down so far she couldn't get back up again.
wow.
Needed help. So, you know,
I remember I curtsied in front. If in doubt, I curtsied in front of everybody.
you curtsied in front of the head of ITV, didn't you?
well, for good reason. You've got your priorities right.
If in doubt.
Well, you know where your bread's buttered. But look at Lee coming away from that. You're just thinking, surely someone must have helped her. What a thought! If you're British going into the royal family, it must be confusing.
Well, your
But
boyfriend
American,
and future husband is the
Hello.
person who should help you. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I know for a fact that the Queen was eager to help her and was ready to give her a member of the family to help her.
I just don't think we need to read into that curtsying moment as deeply as
Good.
we're all looking into. I think it's just it was just a funny story about the
I
first time she
agree.
met the Queen. Like what happens when you go and meet your future in-laws that you don't know and you go, oh my God, I tripped up over the carpet.
I'm with you totally.
And spilt my tea all down me. I felt like that was their moment of that.
That's
Nothing
fine.
too serious, nothing too...
We shouldn't take it too seriously, except we've been invited to watch 6 whole hours of this. So that they are inviting us to scrutinise it.
Yeah.
And we're doing just that. That, for me, was the only awkward moment. I'm actually quite enjoying it and actually seeing their side of the story.
Lots
There are
of
two-
pictures we haven't
There
seen
are two
before.
sides of the story.
What was your...
Well, my take is she's a very intelligent woman.
Yeah.
I quite liked her,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. I found out more about her than I have ever through reading online newspapers. I liked her. She's a planner. She likes to control things in her life. That is not a criticism
No.
at all. I don't blame her. She had a career. I like her. She's super intelligent. He is nowhere near intelligent or as intelligent as her. And I think they're genuinely in love, and he's now found a purpose. That's what I think, to be perfectly honest.
I won't hear a word said against him. I had a son-in-law who was in the army and was with him in Afghanistan, and it was said to me, don't ever say anything against him. He is a really good person. And we all
You
loved
don't
him.
get
can
to
tell
become
that.
a crack Apache
Yeah, exactly.
pilot and not be bright.
Yeah, exactly.
Surely.
So I think he's... he made it clear. She came into my world and gave it a go, and now I'm going into her world and giving it a go, and I wish them the best of luck.
Did you hear a familiar voice on the documentary? Someone
Yes.
from our very own family. Listen if you can hear Alison Hammond.
She was delightful. She was lovely.
makes you look beautiful today. Megan, we love you!
How good is that?
We might
She's
have
not
put
turning round,
we
is
might
she?
have
She's
put
so
our
professional.
we
She's
put our own
right.
footage in there at the end. That footage at the end was not in there. It was just the words. That
You can hear her voice.
Well done explaining that, because they weren't totally, the programme makers weren't totally clear about what was.
No, you couldn't. You only heard, only we would know. You. Could
I
hear
assumed
Alice.
when she was saying she's delightful that they were talking about Alison. I thought, marvellous.
well, it
you know.
could have been either.
And I got a glimpse of... Did I not get a glimpse of you on one of the newspaper front pages?
Yes, I was in one of the front
Oh, were
pages.
you?
Yes, yes. We're all in.
Hold tight for a moment, because still to come, your first chance of the morning, play spin to win. So stand by your phone. We could be calling you in a few minutes' time. We'll see you after the break.
Welcome to my